Welcome in to another episode of Biz Buzz 413. I'm your host, Jill Monson. Thanks to Bill Cole, the local entrepreneur who founded Living Local 413, and super excited to be able to incorporate all that is going on across Hampden, Hampshire, Franklin, and Berkshire counties, and very grateful. I like to say from Thanksgiving to Christmas, I am in my season of gratitude, although I'm one of those like thankful every day kind of people. I know I'm annoying, but in the season of gratitude, I'd like to thank our groundbreaker sponsor, Home City Development. And I just think that it's perfect time of the year because a home at the holidays. So Home City Development has actually been building better neighborhoods since 1967. It's even older than me, which I didn't think anything was older than me. They're based out of Springfield. Home City believes everyone deserves a quality home and that creating sustainable, affordable housing is what helps Western Mass 413 communities continue to grow stronger together. So thank you so much, Home City Development. Today, we are going to talk with a guest all the way out in the Berkshires. No, I'm kidding. But I also want to recommend that you make your suggestions to me. What do you want to hear about? Do you have a guest you think? Do you know somebody in the Berkshires or in Franklin County that I don't know? Email me and let me know so that I can get them on the show. How do you email me? It's easy. Email bizbuzz at livinglocal413.org. So it's BIZ and then BUZZ. So one Z, two Z's. Bizbuzz at livinglocal413.org. Send me those ideas. And now coming all the way from the Berkshires, which I love the Berkshires. I just don't feel like I know as many people. So I have a new friend. I have Deirdre Bird, founder and CEO of Dri Umbrellas. Hi.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
I am so glad that we sat next to each other. We were at an event, a big event through CWE, the Center for Women in Enterprise. And as a female business owner, Deirdre was at the table and we get chit-chatting and her product's super cool. We're going to talk about it. But she was like, I'm from the Berkshires. And I was like, oh, ding, 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 come on my show. So thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. It was so wonderful meeting you there. And yeah, just you being bold enough to open the umbrella inside and you gave a great show to everyone at the event. So I really appreciate that.
Everybody at our table was like, no, you can't open an umbrella. You're inside. And I was like, you know what? I'm a risk taker. And I just popped the baby open and we'll talk about, the quality. Whew. Anyway, so 30,000 foot explanation because people are like, Dri umbrellas, don't get it, never heard of it. Why is it a special umbrella? Like, what is the deal? And then we'll talk about why you wanted to do this. But first, what is Dri Umbrellas?
So Dri Umbrellas is a company addressing the ocean plastic crisis via the umbrellas we've created from the material. So the canopies of Dri Umbrellas are made from 100% ocean-bound plastic, which prevents the ocean from infiltrating our ocean, starting to decimate ecosystems, kill marine life, etc. So we utilize that for the canopy. They have stainless steel poles for extra durability compared to other umbrellas on the market. We use a bamboo handle to make sure there's that element of sustainability as well, not cutting down trees to make handles, but instead incorporating a much more sustainable material. And I also have decided that it's the last umbrella anyone will need. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't contributing to any other pollution issues by creating a poor quality umbrella. So I'm holding myself and my company to the standard of a lifetime guarantee.
Wow.
So this is the last umbrella that you will need to buy.
Well, I can say I've tangibly, sometimes people come on these podcasts and they interview people and they haven't like eaten the food or they haven't, tried the product. I've held the umbrella indoors, but I've held the umbrella and opened the umbrella. And first of all, it's like this smooth, like just like a very pleasant open. And it feels very sturdy. And I can't imagine how many people that are listening are like, they can picture their own umbrella right now, or I should say umbrellas, because there's usually plural and they're usually somewhat mangled. Like there's those, like, I don't know what they're called, but like the inners, like the arms, there's like 3 or 4 arms that are like poking out, sticking weird. And, you try to shove it in your purse because you don't want anybody to see how embarrassing it is. But this is like a nice, tall, not like as big as like a gigantic golf umbrella, but like a larger umbrella. So you don't get soaked. And I love it. And in particular, people know my background was marketing. I don't know if you knew that, Deirdre, but one of the things that I love is your tagline that you use: sea cycled. So it's sea cycled umbrellas. So SEA.
Yeah.
Did you come up with that?
I have to give my husband credit for it. So
Oh,
he's also he's also in marketing and graphic design, and I like to call him my in-house designer because he literally lives in my house. But he's much more clever than I am with that type of stuff. So he came up with it instead of, it's a play on recycled plastic, obviously. So recycled plastic. Um,
it's
and
brilliant.
yeah, we wanted to make it a little different and, still have that edge, but also help explain what the product is. So unfortunately, I have to give him credit for that
No,
one.
not unfortunately. Give him the credit and make sure you tell him that he's got a fan because I loved it. So I know that your website includes this like note from the founder and it goes on to explain more about the question I'm going to ask you so people can go online and read the full story. But I have to ask because when I met you, first of all, you're super cool and I thought you were just awesome. But I thought in my head, and this is mean and probably snarky, but it's Jill. So I thought, huh, I wonder if she grew up as a little girl saying, I think I want to own an umbrella business someday. Like I wanted to be a teacher. People wanted to be like a nurse. And you were like, umbrellas all the way. Is that what happened?
Absolutely not. I don't know if there's anyone on planet Earth that woke up being like, I want to make an umbrella company. I would honestly love to meet that person. I'm sure they're very unique individual if so, but that was not me at all. Up until Dry began, until I came up with the idea in 2017, I didn't even want to be a business owner. I had no aspirations to entrepreneurship, no experience with environmental studies, anything like that. I was actually pretty deterred by the whole idea of owning a business, being responsible for other people's livelihoods in terms of eventually taking on, a
Yeah.
full team. So it definitely was not on my radar. Not business ownership wasn't, and certainly a business building umbrellas was not.
So what got you there? Like, I mean, you quote this statistic, I think it was like it's over 30 billion pounds of plastic that ends up in the ocean. So is was it just like wow, that's too much or like what got you to umbrellas?
Yeah, so it was that I watched this really disturbing documentary on ocean plastic that totally freaked me out. So everyone can just take my word for it or they can watch it
No,
themselves,
no.
but it's really disturbing. And so I was really freaked out by it. And then a few days later, I was walking to work and my umbrella flipped inside out and snapped. And as I was standing there, really annoyed because I was wearing very cute suede shoes that were
Oh,
getting ruined in the rain. I know, the worst. I knew I had to throw the umbrella away, right? Because like you said, it's like embarrassing if things are sticking out of it and it doesn't really work anymore once it breaks. Like it's kind of dead. The product's not usable
yeah.
anymore. So as I was throwing it away, I saw the tag and it said made from 100% polyester, the canopy itself. And in my mind, I'm like, I just learned all about this plastic problem. I did learn that plastic bottles can be turned into other things like polyester fabric. So like shirts and shorts and
Okay.
shoes and can be incorporated into bags. So I was like, can I just make canopies, these fabric canopies from ocean plastic and ocean bound plastic? And come to find out, if you're crazy enough and you put like years of your life into it, you can. So I decided to do umbrellas too, because as I was throwing it away, I was like, oh, you know what? It's time to invest in a good one. And I couldn't think of a single brand that makes umbrellas.
Interesting.
So
Well,
I could have gone the bag route, I could have gone the t-shirt route, but when I realized that it's kind of an open market in terms of no real brand leader,
yeah.
that's when I decided umbrellas would be the avenue I'd pursue.
No, I think
So
that's genius because, yeah, you're right. I mean, like, I've seen other recycled plastic based products, but I had never heard of this. And I think it's interesting too, because it's like, what are you going to invest your money in, right? And the umbrella is not going to be the cheapest, but you don't want that. Like, I mean, I'm an MBA and you talk about your price point and where you come in the market. You don't want to be low entry. You're not the pick it up at the, corner store bodega for, $3.99 because that is a tossable, product. And in occasion you might have to do that. But if you have this, you'll have this one that you invested in and with your guarantee forever. But one of the things I thought was really interesting, you talked to us about what the materials are that make up the umbrella. But when I was researching, I was like, oh, so, of course, perception and reality. I'm like, oh, so she takes the plastics out of the ocean and then makes them into the umbrella. Like I could just picture you at like Squamicut with like a net or something. Like I was like, how did she do this? And then I was like, oh, wait, it's ocean bound versus ocean ocean plastic and this difference and then how you get it. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because obviously I don't think the normal people of us, Deirdre, know anything about that.
Well, in fairness, honestly, I didn't either.
Okay,
So
good.
it's just like learned. I had a few years ago would probably would have been the same question of like, wait, what, like, how does that even work? Because that was my question initially, which I learned. So the difference between ocean plastic and ocean bound plastic, some of the plastic itself is actually pulled from the ocean, but ocean bound plastic is what's flooding in. And as you saw on the website, it's 33 billion pounds of plastic that are flooding into our oceans. And a lot of time, the plastic that's in our oceans, the water, the sun, the salt, has started to degrade it past the point of what our modern recycling system can handle. So you can pull it out, but if it's covered in barnacles and seaweed and
Mm.
broken down by animals that have picked at it, then it's not going to be able to be recycled into another product. It's past the point of being able to do so. So we really need to utilize plastic that's still fairly intact, but will be bound for the ocean and will result in the ecosystem damage. So I talked to a lot of scientists and oceanologists, and before I really began production, because I wanted to ensure I was having the biggest possible impact on the problem. And they said, we need to shut off the tap on ocean plastic. Like what's in
Sorry,
there is in
water
there.
tap. I got it. Go on. Sorry.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right. So,
So you're
yeah,
not
nice
dredging the
it. I
Atlantic.
bet they were being punny.
Funny.
So we're not out in like little boats in the ocean pulling plastic out. There actually is an organization called the Ocean Cleanup that's out there doing something along those lines. But our main focus is to really prevent it from happening at all.
From getting in there in the ocean. Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So where do you like source it from? Like, I mean, so then flip it. You're not just down like on Main Street in Pittsfield, like looking in the trash barrels, right? I mean, nothing wrong with that. That's a very important thing to do, but like you're sourcing your plastic from some place,
yep,
right?
yep. So it's kind of a little
Okay.
dirty secret of uh, a lot of first world countries, including the United States, that we spend billions of dollars shipping our trash overseas so that we don't have to manage it in landfills domestically, as does France and Germany
Ah,
and Canada. And we ship it to these smaller countries in predominantly Southeast Asia and Africa that accept it for financial incentives as part of a ways to stimulate their
wow.
economies.
I literally had no
A
idea.
lot of people
Wow,
don't. Dirty little
that's a
secret.
naive,
Yeah.
privileged first world
Yes,
problem, huh?
truly.
Sorry. Thank you,
Truly.
Deirdre. Thank you for that.
Truly,
Right.
it's
So well, no, I guess I'm wondering with that, and when I was thinking about questions to ask you, I go, God, I'm going to sound like I'm, Barbara Cochran on Shark Tank or something when I ask this question. But like, are your umbrellas manufactured overseas or are they manufactured in the United States? Like, it's truly a Shark Tank question, but it's a question people are going to ask. So, where are they manufactured?
totally. Yeah, so the plastic itself is gathered from Thailand. And to your point about the price point, that is part of it because we pay fair wages for local community members in those areas, predominantly those who have lower levels of education, might not otherwise have, an employable track record or a resume, if you will.
Mhm.
And they gather the plastics from beach lines, coasts, rivers, streams, other waterways before it hits the deep sea. And they bring it to recycling centers in Thailand. Again, Thailand is one of the countries that accept those financial incentives, but they don't have
Mhm.
the waste management infrastructure to deal with the influx of plastic that we send them. So, because of
Okay.
that, it ends up in environments or really poorly managed landfills and it gets sucked into the ocean. So, we pay workers there, bring it to recycling centers, it's sorted, it's shaved, and it's turned into these plastic flakes. And that is then sent to China, where it's turned into a fabric mill and turned into fabric, sheets of polyester fabric, and then to our umbrella factory as well. Um, and yeah, we just have like the best manufacturing. I lucked out so hard because as a first time entrepreneur and trying to figure out a global supply chain, like it's incredibly difficult. Um, I looked high and low to do things domestically, but unfortunately, because we don't keep the plastic on our shores, the real ocean plastic problem isn't here, it's in Asia.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it felt like the right move to go to the places most impacted by this pollution problem.
But
Um,
I also think that's, what you're saying is so true. I mean, I know and you've heard it on Shark Tank. A lot of manufacturing ends up being done overseas because,
Mhm.
right or wrong, and we're not going to get political, but there's a difference in cost. And so if the end user, me, can't afford a $400 umbrella, you might not be able to pay what someone in this country would want, even for just the wages of physically assembling the actual umbrella. So there is, it's a struggle, but I also think sometimes, like, yes, we are living local 413, and you are a local business, so you sell a product, your money that you make for selling that product then goes back into our local economy with your hairdresser, with a restaurant, with a mechanic, but there is something to be said for being living local 413 that is a part of the global economy. We are not,
Mhm.
we can never, we can't put a bubble around Western Mass as much as some days I would like to, right? So, and what I loved about reading your story was this like passion and relationship you have with the factories you work with. Because people have that misperception, like you're just like, hiring 5 cents on a dollar kind of thing. And like you're like fine if they're getting, no lunch break, but you're not, you're looking at how it's being how not how the whole system of the factories you're working with are operating. And so that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely. It was really important to me. I got every certification that I could from them in terms of the working conditions, in terms of like how they're graded on safety scales, things like that. I
Yeah.
really put a lot of effort into vetting the umbrella factories themselves. So I looked at many of them. I actually hired a quality assurance agent who speaks very good English, and he did digging into various umbrella factories so I could choose amongst amongst those that I felt had the safest working conditions. Um,
What an
and
outstanding
you,
story. Good job.
thank you. It definitely, I wasn't ready to hit go on the business until I was sure that it was going to be everything that I wanted it to be, and that the dozens of jobs I was going to create along the supply chain were good quality and safe,
Mm,
and there's no child labor or
yeah.
anything um, concerning like that. It was equally as important to me to solve the ocean plastic crisis as it was to make sure that the people along the way had a safe experience working for the brand.
Well, yeah, I think that's the piece that non-entrepreneurs have no idea is like there's so much for any business, whether you're in manufacturing or service based or what, but there's just so much, should I be this, this legal entity or that legal entity? Should I have contract workers? Should I have employees? Should I choose material A or material B? There's so many things that go on behind the scenes. So that brings me to my question. And of course, we're starting to run out of time, but what is, as an entrepreneur, what's your favorite part and your most challenging so far?
Well, because we're short for time, I actually would say my answer is the same for both anyways. So that's it's good
Oh,
it's good
okay.
timing. Challenging is everything that you need to learn because as you said, there's so many facets of business. I didn't know how to do any of it.
Yeah.
Filing for a legal entity, I had no idea. Figuring out
Hmm.
business social media, I had no idea. So I love learning though. And so it has been really rewarding to look back and realize, like, oh, I had no idea how to do that a year ago. And now it's something I do every day without really thinking twice about it. So I think the learning is definitely the challenging part and the feeling of not really knowing and being confident in what you're doing. And the rewarding part is really like when you realize now you do know what you're doing because you learned and you overcame that challenge.
I love that. And I hope that the listeners that are contemplating entrepreneurship hear that, because I am an entrepreneur. I own my company Pop More, and I owned a company previously for 10 years. And there is sometimes people will say, I thought, I was working like a slave in the corporate America, so I started my own business. And I'm like, so that you could have time? Because the what you work half days. It's just which 12 hours of the day you choose to work, right? So there's no better or worse. It's just, are you cut out for it? And it is a process. One thing I wanted to ask you, and I don't care that we're short on time because I'm more curious about this. I look at your business, and at first I was like, is this a nonprofit? And I was like, okay, no. And I cleared that up. But I would describe it as an there's different names for it, but I would describe it sort of, Dry Umbrellas as either a social enterprise or a mission driven business, right?
Yep.
How do you describe it? And is there anything that you found more challenging? Like maybe you're talking to an entrepreneur who isn't social or mission driven. So have you noticed anything that was a little trickier for you? But how do you describe it? And then were there any additional challenges?
Yeah, I always describe it as a mission-driven business, because to me, this business wouldn't exist if it wasn't based and rooted in a mission. I would not have just
Okay.
started an umbrella business to own umbrellas. It
No.
was very mission-centric. So I always describe it that way, and it is kind of tough sometimes at markets or events like that to get people to understand that it's not a nonprofit and that it really is
Mm,
a for-profit business that is propelling this mission. So you think like a Patagonia or a North Face or a company like that, that is definitely not a nonprofit, but its entire
mhm.
ethos for the business is around environmentalism. And I think this has been a concept that fortunately has been propelled in recent years, which is businesses can do good, business for good. So it
Yes.
doesn't have to be a nonprofit where, you're kind of pinching pennies and trying to make things work, really having to be really zeroed in on where every dollar is going, constantly be looking for donors.
Yeah. And like and responsible to a board, if
Right,
you will. You know what I mean? So
right.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I never wanted it to be a nonprofit, and it's fully a for-profit. Every other product that comes out of Dry will be as well.
It's funny because what that means, and so somebody that's listening that's not an entrepreneur is like, you're always a nonprofit for a long time, meaning you don't have any profit. It does,
Yeah.
you operate as an
Yeah.
entity as a for-profit business, but it takes a long time to actually put pennies to the bottom line. But we'll talk about that another day. We do have to go, but I think the question now, everybody's fallen in love with Dry Umbrellas, and they're like, oh my God, I got to know more about this umbrella. Where can people get it? And tell us about like where to get it and more about that lifetime guarantee because I want to make sure you bring that home.
Yeah, so you can order them off our website, which is www.dri.earth. So that's where you can go ahead and buy. And the lifetime guarantee is truly you buy a dry umbrella. If it breaks, you send it back. And our first step is trying to repair it first. So again, not to avoid creating further pollution, right? Like 1.1
Right.
billion umbrellas end up in landfills. We don't want that to happen to ours.
1 billion and one.
Yes,
you know.
yes, honestly, which is just crazy and goes to show the quality of the product currently on the market versus what
Yeah.
we end up creating with ours. Um, so you send them back to us. We will try to repair it. If we can't, we'll replace it. And then we work with our manufacturing partners to try to utilize whatever parts of the umbrella isn't broken in our next manufacturing run.
Amazing. I'll put all the information. I'll also include some contact information for you, so that they can get a hold of you if they have more more questions about everything. So, Deirdre Bird, the founder and CEO of Dri Umbrellas, thank you so much for being here. I think it's remarkable. I want to ask that when you go on Shark Tank, because someday you're going to, can you just like one little shout out for Living Local 413? Just be like, it all started in the 413 or something like that. Make a 413 umbrella or yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. This show is Biz Buzz 413, and I'm your host, Jill Monson. Thank you to Home City Development, our Biz Buzz 413 groundbreaker sponsor. I am still looking for guests to join me on our Beyond the Biz Card series, which is where we dig in. It could be a nonprofit, a community leader, a business owner, but we sort of get a glimpse into who the person is behind their awesomeness. So if you have a recommendation, make sure you email me. You can do so at buzz@livinglocal413.org. And as I end every show, when you wake up tomorrow morning, I don't care if there's a little cold, some frost out there, because we're now into the winter months of December, but just wake up and say, I live in the best part of the entire country, the 413.